Hi, I'm Hannah.
And I'm Hanna.
And this is Horror Hour with the Hannas,
where we talk about all your favorite new releases.
Yes, and today we also have a new guest on the show. We have Brandon from Haunted US. Hi, Brandon.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show. So, pitch yourself to our listeners. What is it that you do and where can we find you?
Yeah, sure. So in 2020, I started a little website called Haunted US. I've been interested in hauntings my whole life, and now I have the opportunity to travel the country, do some really extensive research, and photograph haunted places to share out on the internet. We share them not only to give locations the opportunity to be seen, but also the chance to control some of their own story. You know, we find a lot of times hauntings are pretty well sensationalized. So we try to combat some of that just so that we have more realistic views of what a haunting looks like. Not everything's a demon. Not everything is out to hurt you. I won't say those things don't exist, but it is definitely something where if they do, they are not common. So our website address is hauntedus.com. You should definitely check it out. We have a new article out every week.
Awesome. Are you on the socials as well?
Oh, of course, at hauntedus on everything.
Perfect. So what ended up like fully inspiring you to start that? I know you just touched on it a bit.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up on Unsolved Mysteries and Ghost Hunters those first couple of seasons, and I realized, you know, these are real places. These are places you can go. And we had a little haunted road. I'm going to put big quotes, haunted road, in my hometown. And I spent a lot of time there in high school. And ultimately, around college, I sort of packed those things away and got really into photography. And then ran into a group doing a public paranormal investigation at one point, and they were so great that I was like, can I like hang out with you guys? Can I join your group? Just totally invited myself along, and it ended up being so much fun. And then at one point I pulled out my camera and the chocolate got in the peanut butter. And then it was, you know, I love photography. I love the paranormal. So it made sense. Travel the country, tell the stories of these really cool paranormal places.
That's really cool. How often are you traveling for that?
So I actually just got back on Saturday. I flew in from Nevada. I would say we're out probably once or twice a month, and going to like 10, 15 places every time we go.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So in Nevada, it was a 1,300-mile road trip. I flew into Reno and snaked through the entire state, ended up in Utah for a little while, as everyone does, and caught a lot of really, really great photographs. I had the opportunity to photograph the Goldfield Hotel. Anybody who's into ghosts will definitely know that place and know that it is very hard to get in. So we were really honored that the owners let us do that and grab some photos.
That's super cool. See, I love traveling and I need to find a way to get my butt doing something like that. Paranormal is unfortunately not for me because I'm scared of everything.
Well,
but,
we've said many times, my mom lives very close to the Evan City Cemetery, which is where they filmed Night of the Living Dead.
We need to go there.
We could go to the Monroeville Mall where they filmed Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, that's more like our niche there. But that's not the kind of traveling I'm referring to. The kind of traveling I'm referring to is going to Nevada.
You don't want to go to the country in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I would prefer to go out west than to the cemetery near your mom's house, but that's okay.
I want to go to wherever the Titty Twister is in, what's it called? In From Dusk Till Dawn. Okay. That's Mexico, I think, though.
That is Mexico.
El Rey.
And probably not real. Definitely
place.
Not real. Well,
I can definitely recommend Nevada, especially up north in the high deserts. It's absolutely gorgeous. So
we went to Nevada like 2 years ago, and we did the national park that's there. And then Yeah, we're also going again in May to
Awesome.
like the Reno area and Lake Tahoe. So we do
Awesome.
like our travels, but
Well, you can let me know if the Reno airport feels as much like a Chuck E. Cheese to you as it did to me.
unfortunately, we're flying in and out of San Francisco, so I cannot go there.
Oh, even better. You're going to be able to like loop down through the Sierra
Yes.
Nevadas. Oh, that's going to be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, we're doing a national parks trip, which is like my big
super
passion.
cool.
But that's not the passion we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss our passion for horror movies. So, just to bring in your niche and our niche, do you have any favorite haunted horror movies?
Yeah. So my actual favorite horror movie of all time, and you know what? I don't even need the caveat. My favorite movie of all time is The Shining. Kubrick's Shining is like just the pinnacle for me. I love the dread. I love a movie that doesn't jump out at you with the scary aspects, but instead is just keeping you on the edge. Like you don't understand what's going on. Yeah, that's 100% top favorite.
I'm cracking up because we just recorded an episode yesterday that's going to come out before this where we talk a little bit of shit on The Shining. So I wouldn't say I dislike it. I don't love it the way a lot of people love it. However, I completely understand why people love it.
And I think you make a good point about that. I like the point that you made about that, about how it's more dread and it simmers before it builds up. Like it's not an immediate bang, bang, bang in your face scary.
And that's the same reason I love Oz Perkins, right? His movies are these really slow burn, very beautiful films, but they're not, they don't have a nun that jumps at the screen. They have this like atmospheric horror to them, and that's the dream for me.
Do you have a favorite Oz Perkins film?
Yes. Oh man, it is a toss up between two, but both of them I would argue are my favorite, and that's The Blackcoat's Daughter, probably edging out Gretel and Hansel. I loved both of those so much. When I found out about Oz Perkins, I sat down and just devoured all of his movies in a weekend. It was wonderful. Most terrifying weekend ever.
We aren't as knowledgeable actually on his filmography as you seem to be, but I have heard very, very good things about Blackcoat's Daughter, so it's on my to-watch list. Yeah, I haven't seen that one, and that's the one I'm like most interested in seeing that I haven't seen yet.
Definitely
really
get
like
ready to be
Longlegs.
sad. It's a very sad movie.
Okay, I'm ready.
No, I'm interested because I think as viewers will know or here today, I have not been the biggest fan of the movies I've watched from him, which is Big Two. Yeah, wow. I will say I did not love Longlegs, and I'll start talking about The Monkey. I did not particularly like this movie. We can argue over it. Hanna has different feelings than me, but unfortunately, this one just tonally did not work for me. So, but
it did have a real funky tone. It was way out there.
And I can handle like weird tones. I think what I don't like is snark. And right now, this one at least came across to me kind of snarky. And that might be a me problem. I don't know. It's more like insincerity.
I can totally see how you got there. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that is something I'm seeing across the board. I think this movie has a very wide range of reception. And I feel like that just might be an Oz Perkins thing because Longlegs also had a very varied reception. But we'll get into that a little bit more. As discussed, we are covering The Monkey, which is written and directed by Oz Perkins.
And we'll be spoiler free until we tell you we're not. Yes. You know the deal.
Yes. And it's starring Theo James. The back of the box description is when twin brothers Bill and Hal find their father's old monkey toy in the attic. A series of gruesome deaths start. The siblings decide to throw the toy away and move on with their lives, growing apart over the years. That is such a shit description, but that's fine.
That's pretty lame by comparison to what it is.
Not capturing about half the movie, but that's okay. At its core, I suppose that's what it's about, though. It's based off of a Stephen King short story featuring a cymbal-banging monkey, but the film replaces the cymbals with a drum. And the reason why, according to Osgood Perkins, that they made that change is they believed that the Walt Disney Company owned the rights to the cymbal-banging version because of Toy Story.
Very interesting. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting for sure. And I feel like the normal image that we have of a monkey toy is the cymbals. So
yeah,
it tracks. But it also makes sense why they would change that, because I'm not messing with Walt Disney.
I don't think anyone is.
The people that literally invented like the copyright system as we know it and twisted it into the knots that it's in now.
Yeah, so. Not someone to go up against. I also think it's funny because people were calling this movie like Evil Toy Story. So it's funny that there's even more of a connection than that.
That's interesting. I don't know that I catch Evil Toy Story from this.
It has a little bit in that
maybe
a toy is mildly sentient and kills people.
Fair enough.
But, you know, the short story, have you read the short story by chance? Because, like, we haven't.
I have not.
I thought about it.
I have not. Yeah, same. Yeah. But I ran out of time.
Yes. Story of my life. So, yeah, we didn't read it either, but allegedly it is not this comedic. It's much more serious, which I think tracks for me for Stephen King. But he was like, this is a movie about a toy. So I think bringing it into the more comedy side and bringing in the comedic elements makes more sense. And he said that the comedy in the film intentionally avoids subtlety and makes use of the extreme gore to joke about the absurdity, pointlessness, and randomness of death.
Yeah, and that shows 100%. Yes. All of the laughing parts. I was surprised I was the only person laughing in the theater, but they are very like on the nose.
Very on the nose. How big was your theater? Like, were there a lot of people?
No, I think there were like 4 people, but I did see it like in the middle of the afternoon when I had time. So it was definitely not peak box office times.
Yeah. Okay. See, we saw it in an early screening several weeks ago. And so because we were in an early screening, it was a pretty packed theater. So I would say people were definitely like responding and laughing for sure.
We had a response, not as much as Hard Eyes, which we watched.
Not as much as Hard Eyes or Companion, I would say.
But there was still a response, for sure.
But there was definitely people laughing.
For sure.
No one got the monkey popcorn container.
We looked into it. It was $45, and I was like, I'm not buying the monkey popcorn container.
Well, and then it starts killing your family. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought about buying it before the movie, and then I was like, well, if I don't like this movie and I spent $45 on a popcorn container, I'm going to be pissed. So, alas, we didn't. What were your expectations going into the movie?
So this, I had less than 0 expectations. I was like, oh no, Osgood Perkins is giving in to Hollywood pressure. This looks like Final Destination done by a really good director. And genuinely, I was taking notes during the film. So I was that popular person in the movie theater with my cell phone out. Sorry for anyone who was in there. And I was blown away at how quickly it charmed me and how much I liked it by the end.
Yeah, I think I had probably the same expectations going in. I think I just couldn't get a feel for the tone necessarily from the trailers. I thought the trailers were like well made, and I feel like that's just going to be an Oz across the board thing between Longlegs and this. Those are some like great fucking trailers, but I felt like I wasn't ready for comedy from him, and I wasn't sure it would work in the same way because, like you mentioned, there is so much just about like the dread and the general vibes of his other films.
It's such a departure.
The comedy would lose that,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think there were parts of the movie that I did really like. There were things that I didn't like, but we'll get into that for sure.
For
What about
me,
you, Matt?
I didn't have that many expectations. I think I also said, well, this just looks like Final Destination, which like I like the first one enough. And I'll say Hannah's never seen it, so we watched it in preparation for this episode the other day. So we might have to chat about that movie a little bit too. I will say going in, I'm not a huge Longlegs fan. I feel that I loved the first half of that movie, and I felt completely like the movie lost me in the second half. There might be some coincidences, or excuse me, not coincidences, some similarities in this one as well. So like, and I haven't really seen any of his other work, so like not really that many expectations around him.
I like Longlegs a lot. It's one of my favorites of last year, so I am different, but that's okay. So let's just get into our actual thoughts on the movie. Again, we're going to be spoiler free until we say we're not. So ultimately, it sounds like you liked the movie. Is that correct?
I really did. There were so many pieces to it that really sold it for me. The fact that it really seamlessly jumps between the humor and the more sinister aspects of the film. There's one specific cut with one specific sting in the audio that was just wonderful, and I laughed out loud just because of the cut. So, yeah, and overall, I mean, the other thing is you can almost hear Stephen King narrating this. It is so Stephen King, down to the core, like the weird jilted way that the dialogue is written. Like no one would ever call someone Babysitter Annie. Like that's such a weird way to say that. And it was so Stephen King. And I think if you're a Stephen King fan, you'll pick up on those things.
Stephen King did say that he really liked this. So
yeah, I heard that
I
too.
will say Stephen King is notoriously known for really liking bad adaptations of his movies and really disliking good adaptations of his movies. So this is like I'm mostly joking around, but that is like I hated The Shining, I think reasonably.
Because it's a bad adaptation of his work. It doesn't make it a bad movie, but it's not a good adaptation.
No, but there's other ones. It feels like every time he's like, oh, I love this one, it's usually like kind of middle of the road.
Well,
he said the same thing about the Shining adaptation that was on Sci-Fi in like the early 2000s. That was just the hokiest number.
And he loved that one, right? Wasn't
Yep,
it?
exactly.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, so we can't say if that's high praise or not, but I do find myself liking Stephen King's social media presence. So, I'm going to give him props.
I like him as a writer. I like him as a person. Like,
yeah, I feel like I agree with a lot of what he has to say about the world we live in. So I'm like, hell yeah, brother.
My issue when it comes to adaptations is nobody ever talks about The Shawshank Redemption. Nobody ever talks about Stand By Me. No one ever talks about The Green Mile, which are probably the best movie adaptations from his books.
Yeah, we like to everyone focuses on the like directly horror adaptations, but alas, everyone talks about those movies being good. They just don't always equate them with Stephen King.
Yep, exactly. That's what I mean.
So this movie, The Monkey.
Yes.
So you said that you didn't really like it. Can you give us a brief?
To not be spoilers, I will say there is a time jump in this movie where we go from child's timeline to adult timeline. I'm counting that not as a spoiler.
That's fine.
All of the tone and humor for me really works in the child timeline the beginning of the movie. I feel that the like kind of goofiness and some of the almost insincerity of it works really well when it's kids because they're idiot kids. Once the characters become adults, that tone completely wears like thin for me. And it feels like I understand the movie being kind of outlandish when they're kids is the way that they're interpreting it and like kind of the whimsy of childhood. And it just doesn't work as it carries on. And I would call it like
such an interesting take on it. I love that.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm trying to be mean about the movie, but in a clear and concise, constructive way.
Yeah.
I also have a big problem just nowadays with what I'm calling like I guess like snark humor or insincere humor in movies. I think it's the Deadpool effect. I think and the Ryan Reynolds effect is also someone I just don't like. Just as a person.
People leave the episode.
Yeah. Oh, my bad. That's fine.
It's like whenever we shit on Wicked, I'm like, we can't keep doing this. This is not allowed.
And I enjoyed like the Deadpool movies when they came out, but we're past. It's not 2010s anymore. Like we're past the need for this like bad tongue-in-cheek humor, I would say, which is how I personally felt about it. I felt like there were moments where they're like breaking the fourth wall and like, look how silly we are, look how goofy we are. And that kind of just annoys me at this point versus something like Hard Eyes, which we saw where every actor is taking it completely seriously. That is the silliest, goofiest script, but every person in there is like, just like I said, taking it completely serious, completely committed to it. And they're acting like they're not in on the joke, which I like that. I don't want my characters and actors to be in on the joke. So.
I don't understand. We actually already talked about this off the mic, and I still don't know if I understand what you mean by this breaking the fourth wall, because normally I feel like people associate breaking the fourth wall with like looking at the camera and like acknowledging that you're in a movie or in a show,
yes,
which does not happen in this.
It's not a straight up like break fourth wall where they're acknowledging. It's more that you can tell that they're in on the joke. It's almost like the characters act like they're in a movie. They act like they know they're in a movie. And that is like what I can consider breaking the fourth wall. And it's just that style just doesn't work for me, at least at this point in my life.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that specific comment, but I do agree that I think like
maybe it's not even the characters, it's that the movie is winking at the audience the entire time. Every like setup of something to happen is like, it's like the monkey is breaking the fourth wall.
Okay.
Straight up, I mean,
it was winking a lot.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So I think like when I watched the movie, I kind of felt that way about some of the humor, like the snarkiness of it. I didn't consistently love it. I think there were parts of it where I was like, that is so fucking funny, laugh out loud, loved that. And then there were other parts where I was like, that's just not hitting for me, or that's like, you're going too far with that. I don't love that. But I think kind of reading up on a little bit of like Oz Perkins' life and what I think he was trying to do with the movie, like when I actually try and look at it from a thematic perspective, I appreciate it a little bit more because I do like where he's going with it in that sense.
Yeah, there's a really interesting through line of the brutality and randomness of death. And also, there's a really strong allegory for family and what that means, what brotherhood is, what fatherhood is. I think that those things really shine through. And as much as it is ostentatious and over the top on the box, essentially, if you go below the surface, there's that thematic angle that really drives the film.
I agree with everything you guys are saying. I think that it loses all of that at the time skip, though, unfortunately. Or not all of it. So the fatherhood stuff remains, but I think like
because that's when it
starts. The direction that one of our characters goes was just, I thought, kind of absurd, and I think it loses a lot of that like core theme with that. But we'll wait till we get to spoilers to get into it.
Yeah.
There's not much we can say about it now, so.
Yeah. Okay, so the humor was hit or miss for some of us.
Yeah, and there were parts that I thought were really funny.
Yes.
I will say that. Like I said, most of it was just in the first half of the film.
How did we feel about the performances? Do we feel bought in with the performances in this movie?
The kids were good. I like the kids. I like Mom a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think our narrator, who plays both characters as adults, is also like good throughout. I forget his name.
Theo James.
Theo James.
Yeah.
He's fine in some roles. I don't think he's good in other roles, is how I would put it.
Oh, in this?
He plays two characters.
Yeah, he's playing both the brothers.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you like him as...
I don't know the names.
Damn it. You have
Hal
it up.
and Billy.
Which one's the nice one?
Hal.
I like him as Hal. I don't like him as Billy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's understandable. I mean, one of them clearly being the villain of the film.
Yes. And I don't actually think it's his performance I dislike. I think it's the script I dislike.
It is. I don't think it has anything to do with him that you don't like it. I thought maybe his performance would be more standout for me, but I think I just thought that because I liked him in White Lotus and I think he's hot. If I'm just fully admitting to my bias here. I don't think he was like as standout as I would have wanted, but like he was good and serviceable, and I did like that he was able to play two very different characters and like made me laugh as both the straight man, tame boy and then the villain of the film. So, props.
Love that. I would say the only performance that kind of had me not loving it was the Petey the son. His was very stiff. It felt kind of phoned in.
That's funny because Matt liked
I was going to say, Petey had me cracking up the whole time. That's funny. I know we're just we're not in the same wavelength with this one. I wouldn't say the performance was good. I thought the writing for that character was the punchlines that they wrote for him were pretty funny.
I can absolutely get behind you on that one. I think that's good.
Yeah, I didn't love him either. I don't think he was one of the strong points, particularly in the film. But he wasn't like a problem either, so he's just there.
Agreed. Yeah, it was just a bland performance, not a bad one.
And what do we feel about the way this movie looks, the way it's shot? Like, do we have any commentary on that?
I think the way it's fine. It looks mostly good. A complaint I have after watching Final Destination is like, we gotta, and we're always pushing this, practicals over CGI always when it comes to these kills. And there are multiple very creative and fun kills that I think kind of get ruined by what is supposed to be like an over-the-top CGI moment. And it just doesn't work for me. And like I said, Final Destination is not a very good movie, but like some of those kills are upsetting. And this one, it's hit or miss, I would say.
Yeah, I never drive behind a log truck if I see one.
Nobody does. Even if you haven't seen that movie, you know that scene.
Oh, everyone does.
But
I'm more scared of my shower after the first
one.
Yeah. That one is brutal. I was still like,
that's brutal.
When you see the beginning of that movie, you're like, man, this might be like a serious movie. And then it kind of gets off the rails as it keeps going. But like those first couple they're scary. So.
I wouldn't call them scary. I'd call them more uncomfortable. But I also watched Final Destination for the first time as a 28-year-old. So I think it lost some magic with me.
Yeah, you have to be like 13 in a movie theater clutching popcorn for that one for sure.
Or watching it on FX at like 4 p.m. after school, where it's like a cut for TV version, but like that movie was already like close enough to being TV that you could watch it. Like that's how all of my entire movie history and catalog comes from watching movies edited for TV on FX. Because they used to just play movies all day, and I would go, "What's on?" I'd watch it.
My dad used to record stuff on DVR a lot, so that was my youth. DVR'd movies from my dad.
If you watch Pirates of the Caribbean 3 on FX, it takes 4.5 hours.
That tracks.
It's like, or even longer. Wow. That last scene, the maelstrom, I think there were probably 7 commercial breaks all during it. And it was worth it.
It is worth it. That series is great. But again,
I'm sorry.
Going back to the cinematography of the movie, I will say that a lot of the things that I personally love about Oz Perkins, his use of symmetry, his use of a really, really, really limited color palette are all here. There's one very specific scene where I was looking at it and I was like, oh, that is an Oz Perkins shot 100%. And it was when Ida's going through the house. And I won't say anything more because we don't want to get into spoilers, but she's holding a big gun and she comes out of this door and it is perfectly symmetrical and she's framed really beautifully in the doorway. And it was like, oh, 100% Oz Perkins. I described him to a friend as the Wes Anderson of horror. Because the shots are so meticulous and so symmetrical. They're like architectural photography.
That's high praise.
It definitely is. Yeah.
I did really like the cinematography of both this and Longlegs just being his 2 most recent films. Obviously, Longlegs, I would say, is better. I think Longlegs is just like a really stunning looking movie. And of the horror genre, my second favorite looking movie of last year, Nosferatu being number 1.
I have yet to see Nosferatu. I am so appalled at myself. I throw myself on the court's judgment for not having seen it yet.
It's okay. It's as people who've listened to the show know, it's good. I think it's good, not great, but it was probably the best looking movie of last year, and Hanna has it at number 1.
It's my of all the films that came out last year, I think it's the best looking film. Wow. I would also put it's like that and Dune Part 2 are like tied for me, probably. Yeah, those are tied for me. And then I would say like number 3 is maybe Challengers, which is just up for nothing.
Beautiful looking
Conclave.
movie. Conclave is good looking
Also
too.
a beautiful looking movie. Really loved that one. Anyway.
Well, you're missing Furiosa.
I didn't pay that well attention to that.
No, it's all right.
Okay.
But
yeah, 2025 though. I did think this was a good looking movie. I think that's one of the strengths, and I think that will continue being one of Oz's strengths. I don't really see that. I think even if it's like a movie where you don't really like the plot or the storyline or the characters or anything, you're going to like how it looks, or you don't have a good eye.
Yeah.
So
and that's all of his films so far. They're just like a visual treat. Gretel and Hansel, like, holy smokes. It is so brooding, and it is so just, you can see that somebody spent way too much time on every single shot, and it's wonderful.
And I feel like he seems like the guy who would spend too much time on every single shot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like he seems pretty deliberate with everything that he does or says. Whether I agree with it or not, which I will get into, I think, a little bit.
well, I mean, do you think we're about ready?
Yeah, I think we can enter the spoiler zone.
All right.
Now we're entering the spoiler zone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the spoiler zone. After this point, you're going to hear some things that you might not want to hear.
Cool. So 15-second summaries?
Yes.
Is that where we're starting?
Yes. We can go into our 15-second summaries. For the folks at home who don't know, or Brandon, if you're not familiar, we do a segment called 15-second summaries where we word vomit a summary of the movie in 15 seconds or less. Ooh. So it can be as good or bad as it comes out of your mouth. That's fine. It could be a joke. Whatever the hell comes out is fine. I can go first.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Final Destination Calls by a Monkey.
You're killing me, because that's what I would have done.
Duh. Okay, you're up next, Matthew.
I'm going, or do you want Brandon to go?
You can go.
All right, I'm ready. Yeah, so a family is haunted by this monkey that's killing all their family members, or really just anybody. And one brother is mean for some reason, and then gets his monkey and turns it a bunch and kills an entire town. And then there's a random ghost. That's all I got.
The ghost thing I still don't understand. Yeah. But I have a bone to pick with part of your description, but I guess we'll end up getting into that.
I was being cheeky.
Okay, Brandon, you ready?
I am. Generational trauma sucks, and monkeys are evil.
Yes,
yep.
I think that's a good summation
4
of
seconds.
the movie.
Okay, and for the full plot description, here we go. Twins Hal and Bill discover a drum-playing monkey toy in a closet containing their father's belongings. They wind its key, and later that evening, the monkey plays its drums while they are in a hibachi restaurant, triggering their babysitter Annie's accidental decapitation. Bill's bullying of Hal prompts the latter to wind the monkey's key again, hoping it will kill his brother. Instead, Lois, their mother, suffers a sudden aneurysm. Overcome with guilt, Hal dismantles and disposes of the monkey before he and Bill move to Maine to live with their relatives. When the monkey mysteriously reappears at their new home, Bill realizes its power and winds its key despite Hal's protest, killing their uncle. The twins seal the monkey in a box and throw it down a nearby well, hoping it will remain hidden. 25 years later, Hal is estranged from both Bill and his own son Petey, whom Hal sees only once a year out of fear that the monkey will return and kill him. Meanwhile, their aunt is suddenly killed in a freak accident. Bill calls Hal and insists he drive to her house, claiming he is suspicious that the monkey has returned and someone has been winding its key. Hal realizes it's true when a woman explodes after a motel pool is electrified. Real estate agent Barbara reveals to Hal that following his aunt's death, a series of bizarre, fatal accidents have occurred in the town, before a falling shotgun blows apart Barbara. Hal learns that Bill is living in town and now possesses the monkey. Bill has long suspected that Lois's death was caused by Hal in an attempt to kill him, so he has spent years waiting for the monkey's return to use it in retaliation. However, the monkey has only been killing random people instead of Hal. Bill suspects whoever winds its key is immune to being the next victim and tells Hal that he will allow Petey to wind the key to keep him safe. Hal and Petey enter Bill's home. Bill, seeing his brother still unscathed, forces the monkey to drum without winding the key in a desperate attempt to kill Hal. In retaliation, the monkey begins drumming uncontrollably and triggers widespread death and destruction throughout the entire town. Bill finally gives up, and the twins reconcile over their shared grief for their mother and apologize to each other. Shortly after, the monkey beats its drum one last time, and Bill is suddenly crushed by a bowling ball. Driving through the now devastated town, Hal and Petey accept their fates as the monkey's owners to prevent the key from ever being wound again. And that's the movie.
feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges? As frequent listeners know, I work in mental health and I'm constantly advocating for accessible mental health resources, like therapy. And at Salt River Therapy, therapists provide you with a safe, affirming space to heal and grow. Their boutique practice offers compassionate, quality therapy for individuals and couples, both in person in Brooklyn and virtually throughout New York and New Jersey. They specialize in anxiety, grief, low self-esteem, identity issues, trauma, relationship challenges, and more, and accept most New York Aetna plans and have sliding scale rates available. Ready to prioritize your mental health? Schedule a free consultation today at saltrivertherapy.com. Let the therapists at Salt River Therapy support you on your journey to well-being.
Yeah, so do we want to talk about the ghost? Because I have strong feelings on the ghost.
Yeah,
I definitely want to talk about the ghost.
yeah. Let's just get that out of the way. You take it from there.
Absolutely. So, at basically the very end of the movie, you see this white rider, and they have actually put it into the dialogue of the movie in a number of different places. The White Rider of Death on the Pale Horse. It is a nod to Death itself. Death is in the movie. It is the monkey. It is a character at that point. So I think that that's where it comes from. And yeah, it's a total like left field move, but it totally makes sense to have that over the top nod to Death itself.
Okay, I see it because I know the white horse is usually representative of death.
Yep,
and
it's literally like, there's a moment in the film where in the dialogue they say, the pale rider and you'll know it's Death or whatever they say. That was my verbatim take on the script.
Do you know like roughly when they say that? Because I definitely missed that, or I would have put it together.
It is about halfway through.
Okay.
I can't remember who says it.
Is it when they're adults or children?
It is when they're adults. I want to say it's Billy who says it on the phone.
Okay. That tracks for me. I feel like that sounds like something he would say ominously and weirdly on the phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that makes sense for me. I think at this point in the movie, I was like annoyed already just based on my other feelings. So when that happened, I was like, all right, there's fucking ghosts now. Okay. And like just completely overlooked what was there.
Sorry, I found the actual quote. It is, "And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death." That's the actual quote. It's from Revelations. So
okay, so that's definitely what the ghost is then. If you put together the quote and that, I fully see that. See, I think it's hard when we see new releases because I don't write down quotes because I'm in a packed theater. I'm not gonna whip my phone out, especially in this case. Like, had there not been
you're
people,
not a dirtbag like me, and I appreciate that.
If I were in an empty theater, like I would totally consider, but we were in like the middle of a very busy theater, so notes for me, which I think sometimes makes stuff like that slightly harder to connect together. I think that makes a little more sense, but I still I don't know if I was like, I still don't know if I like it, but I get it. I don't dislike it as much. So let's just get into it a little more about like involving spoilers, what we did or didn't like. So we'll start with did like. And I'm just gonna throw out there, obviously, that I think everyone knew this going in, that this was gonna have some like very funny and interesting kill sequences. And it certainly does. I think that scene where the realtor is walking through the house and he's like, no, and she opens the door, and then the shotgun scene, laughed out loud. I think another scene is when they're kids and they're like, let's test this thing out, and then the next shot is them at the uncle's funeral.
That was very funny. Yeah,
that was one of the laugh out loud moments.
Well, and the cameo of Oz as Chip was so good. So good. Him putting his arm around the kid and be like, we're going to do our best, but it's going to be pretty bad.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And And this is what I'm talking about with like, I loved that tone for like the child story. Like I was having a really good time. I think even from the beginning, the whole like brother dynamic and like how silly they were. And even like if Billy was like shitty to him, I was like enjoying the way they interacted. This just felt like sibling things. And so I like, again, I like the tone there. You're talking about the kills. Sorry. I also agree that like there was some tension leading up to them. They were like fun to look at. My issue is that I saw 100 trailers for this because every time we went to the theaters, there was trailers. And so most of them I'd already seen, which made me a little bit more sad about it. But there was some, I guess, some anticipation for them once I knew they were coming.
Yeah, I think like the closet one is literally in the trailers. So you know that going in. And it's a good, like, it's very funny. So I understand why they put it in the trailers. But yeah, like, you know what's happening.
Well, and they also lean really heavily into Chekhov's gun, not to be too on the nose like with that one, but ultimately like anything that's going to happen, they talk about or they show it really heavily beforehand. Same as Final Destination, where you see who the characters in the form of objects are before you see them act in the murder. And I thought that was really good. There's a really great callback. The son Petey is looking at a brochure and he says something about skydiving and he says, and they do weddings. And at the end of the movie, when the monkey, for lack of a better term, goes apeshit, there is a bride who comes through the ceiling in a parachute, and that I died laughing.
That was very funny. I really enjoyed that callback as well.
So, any other kills we want to talk about, or what else we thinking? Just things we like?
Yeah.
I mean, the bee scene is pretty great too. That was a wild kill.
See, that was my least favorite kill.
Really?
And I think it's just because I don't know if I have a good reason. I saw it coming.
Yeah,
so
of
like
obviously
they
set
set it up very well that it's going to happen. I just feel like some of the things were really absurd, but like mildly plausible.
Yeah.
To me, and that one I was just like, no. And
you know what? I think the reason I found it so disturbing is that I have an inherent fear of bees. So I think that fed into my like of that one.
For me, I think it was just that mullet kid I was confused about what his purpose was at the time. So I was just like, okay, well, we just got to get rid of him. So let's move on here. I need to see what's happening next. But I'm waiting to talk about things I dislike. So I'm trying to do things I like right now.
I would like to get into the purpose of the mullet kid because I didn't feel like that was a necessary addition either. Even though I understand like what it's building to. Like, thematically, I understand why it's there, but I think that it's not needed to get there.
Or I just don't think the thought is finished. I think whatever that he's trying to build on, he doesn't, like, fully get there with Mullet Kid. I don't remember his name.
No.
I don't think they ever say his name.
Yeah, I don't remember it at all. It's just Mullet Kid who's down with a cop.
When you say what he's building to, what are you thinking he's building to?
Well, that seemed to be part of the whole fatherhood story because he wanted the monkey. It reminded him of his father. So he's going to try to take that. There's some flashback where he sees his dad in like a cop outfit, but I think it was a sex thing, unless I misinterpreted that. Yeah.
No, I picked that up too.
Yeah, I think he was a porn star is what I was like getting from it possibly. I'm not sure. And so there's like this thing where you're like, what's his connection to his father? Like he misses his father. Mm-hmm. He's trying to go do this. And he kind of just takes a pretty drastic step to go get this monkey back. And we don't really know much about him or really what his like plan is.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like it feeds into the allegory of the fatherhood complex that is like over the entire movie. He had a deadbeat dad. He tried to, resolve that by getting this monkey that reminded him of his father. But ultimately, the same thing is happening for Hal and for Billy throughout the course of the entire movie. And I think that it's like a microcosm inside there that is looking at fatherhood.
I agree. I agree, and that's why I say, like, I see the purpose of the character being there, because that's my takeaway with his, purpose, for lack of a better word, as a character. I just think that because we already have a very similar concept going on with Hal and Billy.
And Petey.
Yeah. I think we already have, like, the layers of that I didn't need this other guy that wasn't developed, because we really, not that we know too much about the relationship that the other two had with their dad, because he's not there, but I think adding just another person whose psyche we don't really understand and whose family dynamic we don't really understand, and who ultimately, like, doesn't change the plot of the movie in any substantial way.
It gets killed in a horrific way with a bunch of bees flying into his face and eating it from the inside out.
Yeah, that I just felt like they could have used the time that he was in the film to build into the relationships that the other characters have with each other, or further establishing what we're trying to say about their relationship with their parent.
I hadn't thought about it that way. I think that's a really good point. I would say it is interesting to see the struggle that is so very much framed as this monkey is attacking our family, and seeing how that monkey affects someone outside of their family, right? It's somebody else who wants that control over death without even knowing it. So I found it interesting. I think you have a good point that we could have spent that time and budget on character progression within the main characters. So I think that makes sense.
No, I want to get back to, I'll say a couple things I like as well. And I've said many times, I really do like the childhood portion of this. I especially like Mom, who I think she played by the same woman that plays She-Hulk. I haven't even seen that movie or that show, but I'm pretty sure that's her. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I thought somebody would know. Okay. Well,
you should have looked it up, homeboy.
It's okay.
You could be prepared.
I love, like, the dynamic with her and the kids, and like I'm saying, I also really liked the Billy and Hal dynamic, even though, like, I thought Billy was a piece of shit. Like, I thought he was just a kid, and so I think that leads into my, like, dislike of the second half, is because Billy becomes this villain, which to me I was, like, very surprised by and kind of thrown off. And he's not just a villain; he's like a kind of over the top cartoonish villain that has had no character development or no.
I will say the whole movie's kind of cartoonish in that way, so that shouldn't surprise us.
Oh, yeah.
But
I think that him as the bad guy that is still, like, not over this felt really odd. Like, to me.
Can explain to you why I think it's there.
Okay. Sure, tell me.
Well, okay, so first of all, it is set up that he is a little shitbag when he's little. There's no denying that. And I think similar to Billy, I think that's kind of like Oz also. I think they might be both sides of the coin for him. Like, both of them are part of Oz's coping with his parents dying in, like, kind of dramatic ways. And so for people who don't know, his father died of AIDS and his mother died on September 11th and was in the first plane that hit the towers. So I think that both of the brothers are him kind of like self-inserts of different parts of his journey. And so I think Billy is the side of things of, like, what happens when we don't manage our grief and we're not coming to terms with what really happened, and just kind of like letting all our feelings kind of explode without making any attempts to really manage them or get the help that we need. And I think Hal obviously is like when we let that fear of dying, fear of death kind of like become us and live
we build
our
up
whole
the
life.
walls.
Yeah.
All right. I like that read a lot. I think the one fix that would make that fully work for me is don't make Billy the secret bad guy. Make him the second, like, we're an adult, it shouldn't be a secret that he's trying to do this. I think we learned that, like, way too late.
We wanted a fun twist, and I
know, but it just wasn't that fun of a twist.
One thing in Billy's character that I thought was really interesting is that as much as Hal is running away from death and walling himself off from caring about someone who might die someday, maybe not even might, will probably die. Billy is trying to control death in the entire situation that Billy is in as an adult. He's wearing the suit to prevent the funeral as a kid. He wears the suit as an adult in the attempt to create a funeral. And even in his kind of final moments, he is trying to control the arm of the monkey to kill somebody. Like he wants to control death. And I thought that was a really interesting sort of dynamic for that character. Over the top, absolutely, but an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it's very over the top and cartoonish, and I could see why that would not hit for people. And there were definitely moments where I was like, okay, come on. But then there were also moments where I was like, I don't know, it's kind of funny. Okay, Theo James, do whatever you want, bro.
And I like all these readings. I think for me, I think the tone makes it just kind of obscured those like these more fun thematic elements for me. And that could be a me problem, or
I don't think it's a you problem, because I'm seeing some shit ratings of this movie. Like I said, I'm seeing ratings across the board. I'm seeing 1.5 out of 5 from people whose reviews I generally really like, but then I'm also seeing people give it like 4.5 out of 5. So definitely hitting all of that. There's definitely a lot of room for nuance and variation, I think, in your reading of this movie, and if it works. I would say that, like we said, I do think the tone of the movie hits a little better when they're younger. But I think we need, obviously, the part when they're older to really nail down the thematic elements, so the movie simply would not work if we didn't have the time jump.
Agreed.
Yes, and I agree with that as well. I just think maybe the script needed a couple more passes.
and I think that's fine. I think there are some jokes or lines that I would have not had, and I personally wouldn't have had Mullet Boy and, things like that. Yeah. But is what it is.
I also think we're doing a pretty good job of talking about things we do like and dislike at the same time right now, along with thematic elements. So
yes, we're definitely throwing the themes all up in here. I do also like the callback of the bowling ball when Hal thinks about killing him with a bowling ball when he's younger, and that is how Bill dies.
Well, with his own bowling ball. Talk about the cartoonishness. Like, that was the most cartoony death. Like, what a Looney Tunes situation. There's like a Rube Goldberg machine. The bowling ball goes out and it's stuck in the wall with the name forward. Like, wow.
So what do we think? I'll just talk a little bit themes. So what do we think that this ending means then, if we're going to read it as like these two sides of Oz Perkins' psyche? Is it like he's got to kill the version of him that thinks he can control everything, and then kind of just has to open up that closed off side?
I think that is a pretty good read there. I didn't really think about it at all coming onto the episode, but I think that is how I would read it.
That makes more sense to me. I think that was the other thing, is I
didn't know what the movie was
felt
saying.
very empathetic to Billy, so like for him to then get this cartoonish death, I was just like, oh, well, there we go. Like, I
didn't. So like I can feel empathy obviously over going through like severe trauma, over like your mom your dad leaves you, then your mom dies in a traumatic medical way, and then you have like one death after another throughout your life. You don't have like solid connections with your family. Like, that is a lot of trauma, but like, you can't be a piece of shit to everybody either. So I think I was kind of at the point of like not being as sympathetic. So I was kind of like, I'm okay if he gets hit in the head with a bowling ball. That feels good.
I was complete opposite because of all the things. I assumed his character
would have growth.
Would have growth, but I assumed the way he acted the way he did because of all the things that happened throughout his life. So to me, I was looking at this like very broken kid. And like, yeah, he's shitty to his brother, but it's like clear that I never thought it was malicious. I thought it was that he's this broken kid. He doesn't have good empathy yet because he's a child. And so for that to just go into the adult version as well, I was like kind of surprised and was like still thinking he's still even more broken. Like we got to pull him out of this. But then instead he kills an entire town with the monkey and gets crushed with a bowling ball.
Yeah, some people start as a piece of shit and stay a piece of shit,
Yeah.
I guess.
I know. I don't know. I guess I wanted justice for Billy a little bit. But I think maybe that's a misread on the character from when he was a kid. I was definitely like I think I was reading him as like you said, more of a broken kid and less of a bully.
I was reading straight bully.
Yeah, interesting.
Because I didn't think this movie would be hiding too much under the surface.
Well, and even at the end when they kind of reconcile for half a second, he's like, "Oh, well, I didn't think he was my brother." Like, okay. That's not growth.
Exactly. That's why I was annoyed. Yeah, he hits him with the hair thing one more time. Like, dude, come on. Like, I was rooting for you a little bit. All right.
Yeah.
Didn't deserve it.
Apparently not. I know. That's what I'm telling you. That's either a misread on me at the beginning or it's just not clear enough. I don't know. Could go either way.
That's something you didn't like.
Yes.
Anything, Brandon, that you did not like about this movie? I know overall you're fairly positive.
Yeah. So I don't think I really ran into anything I was really turned off by. I will say the stilted dialogue was a little tough to get through sometimes. And I think you hit on the CGI effects. Like, yes, this would have been better practical, 100%. It wouldn't have been as over the top, but I think it would have been a little bit better there.
And is there anything else you dislike, or do you want to start really getting into some more themes?
I feel like throughout, even when we were trying to say things we liked, we did throw in stuff that we didn't like. So I feel like everything that I didn't love is out on the table already. So we can definitely go into themes. Obviously, we've definitely been talking quite a bit about the, death theme. Like, how do you cope when you're surrounded by traumatic deaths, and how that is definitely the inspiration from that comes from Osgood Perkins' childhood. But I did want to read a quote from him that I think sums up this theme very, very well. In an interview, he said, "I spent a lot of my life recovering from tragedy, feeling quite bad. It all seemed inherently unfair. You personalize the grief. Why is this happening to me? But I'm older now, and you realize this shit happens to everyone. Everyone dies, sometimes in their sleep, sometimes in truly insane ways like I experienced. But everyone dies. And I thought maybe the best way to approach that insane notion is with a smile."
There's some wisdom in that.
Yeah.
I like that take.
I think it sums up what this movie is doing and like why the deaths are so outrageous and funny. Perfectly. Nailed it, Oz.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you guys have more to say on that than we haven't already said, or that Oz himself did not say?
I don't. I like it.
Yeah, that was pretty succinct and covers the topic pretty definitively.
Do we want to touch on the family piece, since we had brought that up as well a bit?
Yeah, Brandon, I want you to take that one, since I think you were touching on it earlier.
Yeah, sure. So I think there's this really strong through line, obviously, of fatherhood and the meaning of family. And knowing Oz Perkins' experience with death, I think it's really interesting the way that those things are portrayed. There's some abandonment in the beginning with the father. There's this kind of deadbeat dad theme and what that does to children. And you can see Hal, through his own want to protect his son Petey, pushing him away and being a deadbeat dad. Mm-hmm. And also we have an excellent, I think this is the smallest nod to it, the excellent cameo from Elijah Wood, whose career is just getting stranger and more funny as he goes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely love it. But I think that's the big through line that spoke to me. That it's all about your relationship to both death and your family.
Yeah. Do you have more to add to that?
No, I think you nailed that.
Yeah, and I think, we touched on that earlier as well, with talking about Mullet Boy. So I really don't feel like I have that much to add in terms of like the fatherhood piece. I think there is the piece too that we also briefly touched on with like the brothers and like, I think there's obviously like the importance of maintaining and fostering those relationships, because this man has been completely unable to cope with his life. And I think part of that is because he didn't value those relationships that I think would have helped him cope and move past that grief. Sibling relationships are complicated but tight is the through line there. And then, of course, the generational trauma piece.
Yeah.
Hit us up with that one.
I mean, I think it kind of goes along with everything we've been saying, the generational trauma in this. And, you know, what Oz, I think, went through is that the trauma of, you know, crazy death. And I think specifically there is, you know, not only did their mom die in like a horrific way and many family members died in a horrific way, but they also were left by their father. So they're surrounded by trauma when they were younger. And like we mentioned, because of that, Hal's way of adapting to that and responding to that is then causing and inflicting trauma upon his son.
There's a really, there was a quote that stood out to me that Billy says at one point to Petey when he's trying to get him to turn the key on the monkey. And he says the men in this family have been turning the key for generations. And that makes it very, you know, the generational trauma and the inescapability, like you are preordained to do this. And that is what we do. So I think that's a really interesting point that you touched on, and I think it's really emblemized in that statement.
Yeah, that's a really good quote. Damn, I really wish I had a pen and paper in there. Yeah.
You gotta be a jerk. Just pull out the phone, man.
No.
I won't let her.
I was waving it in the air. I was taking calls. Oh, it was great.
Yeah, take more calls in the theater.
No, stop. I to be honest, like Brandon, I wouldn't let her. I'd be like, I'm not sitting with you if she pulls the phone out.
If we're in a completely empty theater, I'll do it.
If you're in an empty theater, fine. I think people are so misbehaved in theaters around us that I just like I cannot be someone adding to that.
There was so much like yelling and heckling when we saw
Hard Eyes.
Holy
And some of it
fuck.
was funny, but at the same time, it's not. Anytime you're in a packed theater, there's going to be a lot of misbehaviors because everyone is too used to sitting on their couch and watching streaming. And maybe we need to force people to go to the theater more. Maybe we need to force people to go out to eat more and not order Uber Eats all the time. So, you know, we need to fix this, loneliness epidemic, whatever we're calling it. And this is how we're going to do it. This is my 2-step plan. Movie theaters and restaurants.
Okay, I'll let you take that. I don't need to partake.
And I gotta say, we've had a lot of fun here today, folks, but I did have my phone very much like in my crotch as I was doing this. It was like lowest brightness, like, oh shit, I gotta take a note.
That's how you gotta do it. That's how you gotta do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I won't judge you much.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all I ask.
Do we have more to add to any of the theming discussion?
I got nothing.
The only thing that I would add is the soundtrack. We haven't mentioned the soundtrack yet, and I think the soundtrack is literally half the joke of this movie. It is so good. The part that I was talking about earlier with the musical sting is the first time you see the monkey on the shelf in the kid's bedroom. And there is like this, it is the biggest musical sting I think I've ever heard. And it's a monkey on a shelf. Like it's genuinely hilarious the way that that's framed. And then it cuts to complete silence and he just asks a random question of his brother. It was so good.
Yeah, I definitely had fun with the soundtrack in this one. There's not any specific moments that are standing out for me to talk about, but I liked it. I do recall liking it. Any other thoughts, Matt, that we haven't touched on?
No, I'm probably ready to rage. You guys know how I feel. Like you said, a lot of the things you guys said that I really like all came during like the child scenes. And like when you say them, like, yeah, I did really like that. Like that audio sing, that was very funny. And I felt very like locked in. It was just unfortunate that as this movie kept going, it really like wore me down. is the way I would put it. I actually found like a pretty funny Letterboxd review that I thought summed up how I felt.
Go ahead.
If you mind. They actually rated it similar to what I'm going to be. I have two. One was by Sergio Munez Esquire. Pretty fun movie if you're 15 in 2016.
Oh my God.
Was all they wrote.
Oh, that's good.
And I was like, yeah, that's how I felt. There was another person, what was this? Julie, that's all she said. There's a lot she wrote, but this is more serious. And she said, found the ironic, detached, deadpan shtick pretty grating and obnoxious after a while, which that was... I think she said that in a succinct way from what was my biggest gripe. So I still think my rating's not going to be like terrible. There's still, I think, a lot to like here, but those are the things that brought it down for me and made it hard for me to maybe kind of bounce off of it.
Okay.
Sure.
So, Matt, why don't you just give us your rating first?
I'm giving it a 5 out of 10. I'm sorry. I gave it 2.5 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd. So.
I feel like that's a little low, but whatever. It's each their own.
That's what I'm feeling.
I feel like I want to go a 6.5, maybe. There are things that did not hit for me, but the things that do hit, and thinking about it more intellectually about like what the movie is saying, it makes me like it more. So I can't really give it any lower than that, I would say. Brandon, bring us back up here. What are you rating it out of 10?
I feel like a 7.4. But I'm not an expert like you guys. I definitely I'm looking at that and thinking like, what is a 10 to me? This definitely wouldn't be a 10 no matter what, but I think a 7.4 feels right. I really enjoyed what I enjoyed. The couple of grading pieces were grading, but yeah, overall I had a really good time.
Yeah.
But that also could be bias from loving Oz Perkins so much elsewhere and celebrating, the visual aspects of what he does.
And that's totally allowed. That is fine and good. And I get it. Like some people just like certain directors, and like so far Oz has not been one that has like worked that well for me, but I have only watched 2 of his movies. So I will definitely continue to watch his work, and I'd like to go back and watch Blackcoat's Daughter.
I really want to watch that.
Yeah, when you guys do Blackcoat's Daughter, please give me a shout. I will happily jump on for that one.
I don't know if that'll be coming up anytime soon, but we'll hit you up when we need your opinion.
Or we'll pull you on for something else. We'll see.
Yeah.
Sure.
Before we close out, why don't you plug yourself again? Let us know where to find you.
Yeah, so hauntedus.com is the best place to find the work that I do. Great photography, great, really well-researched ghost stories, and at Haunted US on just about every social platform. And we have new articles and information every Thursday. We also have Haunted Atlas, which is our podcast that features some people you might know from Paranormal in Pennsylvania, and that comes out every other Tuesday.
Well,
Thank
perfect.
you.
Brandon, thank you so much for joining us. I thought you had a lot of really insightful and great things to say.
I agree.
Great work.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you for having me.
Give Haunted US a follow, go find them, and give us a follow if you're not, and give us a like, a thumbs up, a rating, all that stuff. Especially Spotify ratings. We keep pushing those because we get some people, especially after I said mean things this episode, they might go down again.
Yeah.
So,
Everyone's going to give us 1 stars for you being a bitch again.
for being pedantic. I was not pedantic. I was good today, I think.
You were pretty well behaved today. I'll give you
There have been a
that.
couple times I haven't been, and I speak what I mean, and then we get bad reviews. So,
Well, you need to say it in a nice, succinct
well,
way.
you know, I'm only a man. I'm only human.
You're a white man.
Okay.
He's just an innocent man.
I'm just an innocent man. Well, I am all good here. So if you feel good, we done?
Yeah.
That was The Monkey. Go see it. I don't really care. But please listen to us. So
That's not how we close out.
I know.
Close out, Matt.
I'm Matt Hanna.
I'm Hannah.
That's been Brandon. And this is Horror Hour with the Hannas.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Horror Hour with the Hannas. Make sure to listen to future episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever else you can find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube, where we post episodes and shorts. You can follow us at Horror Hour with the Hannas on TikTok and Instagram, as well as at Horror Hour on Blue Sky for more content. If you like the podcast, please follow and leave a review on your favorite podcasting app. Happy hauntings!